Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name is Phil. Joining me as usual, well, back now from his holiday, is Rohan. Welcome back.
That's right. Thank you.
And today we are joined by Jan. How's it going?
Hey, good. Thank you for having me here.
No problem. Where are you joining us from?
Well, right now I'm sitting in Sweden, the south part of Sweden.
Yep.
And originally from Czech Republic, from Prague.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
Europe.
but I feel more Swedish right now than 5 years. So
Feel more Swedish? Fair enough. All right.
I don't speak Swedish, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. But do you like IKEA?
Well, I do have few stuff from IKEA. I guess I don't have the buttons here right now, but yeah, I guess everyone does it. Like I have the headquarters like 600 meters away.
Nice.
So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I'll talk about it a little bit later, but yeah, I don't use it much.
Good.
That's
All
funny.
right. Well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, as usual, this episode of the Home Assistant Podcast is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and ESP Home projects. Configuration is done via the user interface, so no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. All right, Rohan. Frank had like a whole soundboard for his ad read.
I know. I can't compete. So
I was that as
I
well.
am second best for that one.
Take it away, Rohan. You can ask the first questions. Grill Jan here. Go for it.
All right. So Jan, let's just start with the basics. What got you into home automation? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I think it's maybe like 5-6 years-ish right now.
Yeah.
I was always like about computers, and I work as an architect, and so I kind of like grew, but I was more into self-hosting, and which is, by the way, the reason why I'm here, because I think you had Alex, I think 2 years ago.
Yep.
And so that was the beginning of the self-hosted podcast, and I heard, it's like, there's a Home Assistant podcast. So I joined, and but I was doing the Home Assistant maybe a year and a half before that, something like that. But I started with OpenHub, and I was fighting with it a lot. And I tried Home Assistant once, but that was, I remember I didn't have a very good experience. I was very much into Z-Wave by that time. So I know that in the beginnings it wasn't working great, and it was I had quite hard time to set up anything.
It was
a
pain in the ass, right? You had XML files that you would have to go in and change little variables to get,
exactly
perfect. Yeah.
So it ended up that I stayed for maybe half a year more with OpenHub, but then eventually I found that my colleagues are using Home Assistant, and so I was like, okay, let's go Home Assistant route. And I didn't have that much Z-Wave by that time, so as you said, like I started trying IKEA. I went into Zigbee more.
Yeah.
And it did like massive step from since that maybe like 5-6 years ago, and like right now it's you can't compare it really. Like right now it's a very much mature project.
Yeah.
Which by the time I wouldn't classify that, but like even with the knowledge I had about the general like IT, I wasn't able to figure out those stuff. So it was quite hard, and I didn't want to consider the home automation as a failure, so I stayed with the OpenHub for a while. But yeah, I eventually gave up on that because there was a lot of different dashboards and a lot of different configuration and
yeah.
And by the time I think Home Assistant already were way more seamless, and very much everything looked quite same. And even though that you had a lot of YAML, I didn't mind because it was just config, so it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you try any others like Smart Things or any of those kind of things, or?
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. Like it was more like controlling stuff. So like the throat free from IKEA, and also Philips Hue as well, and it was around the same time we moved to Sweden with my wife. We both start like adopting Apple a lot. So, but by the time everything HomeKit was quite expensive. So it took me a while before we got into the state where like we could start adopting HomeKit. But that was already Home Assistant. So really, I think the Home Open Hub was really the only proper automation.
So what was your initial driver to start down the smart home path? Because obviously you
I think I just like playing,
tinkering, self-hosting stuff, making your life complicated.
I mean, if you would say that I can have like Lego instead of the home automation, I would go for it. So I think it's So like initially it was really just, oh, this is something that I would like to try. I saw people with the Hue and everything, and then doing like nice stuff. But then I think we start quite getting used to everything and expanding, and so it's a rabbit hole, and
it's an understatement.
I'm fully consumed right now. It's right now that the good thing is that like my wife's on board very much, and so she's involved in the decisions on what's nice,
amazing,
what's not nice, what's working not good, and that there are a few times that she asked me to do something like differently, or maybe to maybe create something as well. So I think that there is a harmony inside that as well, which I'm guessing that everyone has, and I believe that there are some scenarios, especially when everything gets screwed up. I think that's where you usually lose the trust quite quickly, and I think that's at least my motto, not try not to do this. So and I think this is very much everyone will feel the same way. But even like even the personal trust that you eventually, if it gets screwed up quite a lot, even like you will start like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't a great idea. But luckily I didn't have it yet. I hope I didn't jinx it just right now, but like my all lights will go down right now. But
that's right. It. All the lights will turn off. Podcast ends. Yeah.
We can call you Phil with the lights just randomly turning off.
Yeah.
I can do that right now as well, but I don't want to. So it is, I believe, I think that there has to be some harmony in how much you want to involve everything inside it. Like I would never automate like bathroom lights.
Yeah.
Like the hardcore bathroom lights. I can have like some additional one and stuff, like you want to have some like lower intensity or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's like I don't want to touch anything in the bathroom, for example, because I don't think it's I don't think you have time to troubleshoot anything. So it's I think there has to be some compromises. You can
Now let me ask you. So on the topic of bathroom lights and like the complications behind doing stuff like that, are you more of a smart switch or a smart light kind of person? Like, would you rather buy a smart bulb or would you rather buy a smart switch?
Do you take as a combination as a
of course.
answer? Because before I would say smart switch. Yeah. So not the switch. We usually put like the boxes behind the switch. Yeah. Either Shelly or there's the Aquara or some other brands.
Yep.
Now I'm talking Git. Sorry. Yeah, some other brands.
Just a random Git merge conversation there for a second.
Yeah. So there are different brands, but I would try to avoid like with Wi-Fi. Like I would stick with the Zigbee or Z-Wave, either of those. And I have few of like the Fibaro switches or the Aquara. The Aquara I kind of hate because they're like squared. So even if you have like the box behind the wall switch, if it's like empty and there are no cables, it's still hard to fit in.
Yeah.
But what I really liked is Hue released this sometimes last year. Damn it, why it's opening Swedish website. They released wall switch module, which is basically just a really thin box running on of battery that you put inside behind this like normal switch. You connect just the cables to the switch, and like the normal power cables you connect together. So this is the only thing that's connected to the switch, and it basically just controls the switch. So you still have the same switch. You have it integrated within Hue or anything Zigbee, I guess. And you can set whatever light on top of it.
Right.
And it's working with the dimming, dimming. I mean, the time that it's turning on, like, continuous.
Yeah, like that.
It's
like
not
that
like a sharp,
gradual until
yeah, exactly.
off on. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you can even have like modes that you can, if you quickly turn it off twice, it will do something different than if you do it once. Plus, each of the modules natively has like 2 pair of wires, so you can have like the double rocker, or even it doesn't have to be like the rocker. It can be just like button. But I found it as like really the best solution I found so far, because it's really thin, so you can fit it everywhere, and it's not like something that can kill you if it goes wrong, right? I mean, you still need to connect the wires together and behind the switch, but that's usually quite easy. It's you don't have to bend them. You can just connect them. They are like the Wago clamps or something like that. So you can connect those, and then this is operating on like one cell coin battery, I believe, and it's great. I think this was exactly what we wanted. So this all the switches at home looks very much same as when we moved, and they are all smart. And like the claiming battery life is like 5 years that Hugh is saying, and so
every 5 years you kind of have to open it up and swap.
I have no idea. It's
whatever it ends up being. Yeah.
I believe so. I guess it depends on how often you press it, because I believe it's only active when you press the button.
Right.
So if it's not, then I guess it can last longer. I don't know.
Cool.
So I would say this combination is the best one I've found. And
is that actually changing like the physical status of the light bulbs connected to the switch? Or is it
no, it doesn't. No. So what you do is that you take the wires that are normally plugged into the switch, and you plug them together as the light would be always on.
Gotcha.
So, and then this is just a separate thing. So it's not connected to your electricity in any way. Yep. It's just a separate box that you can stick in the back of the normal like switch and just connect the wires.
Yeah.
And so it's completely safe. I would say it's not anything that you would have to add additional wires or worry about overheating, because for example, like the Shelly switches, they are heating quite a lot. I think there was like 80 degrees Celsius, something like that. Wow. when you had something a little bit more powerful on top of it. So it is, I think, the safest option. Plus it's very much certified for the European market, which, well, I wouldn't put anything that's not inside the walls anyway, but still I think this is the best option, especially due to the size, because it's like way thinner than anything else you can find.
And I guess that now gives you the cost, the benefit of a Philips Hue bulb that can do color changing with a physical switch on the wall that can be. And Home Assistant always knows what the status is.
Yeah, exactly. You can I said I use Zigbee, but I'm using the Philips Hue, or we are using Philips Hue.
Yeah.
Like the application and the hub, because like even if everything goes down, I still want the lights to be able to like work, right?
Yep.
And I want to do the Home Assistant updates and or update the infrastructure that I have at home, and I still want the lights to be able to, so I can control them. So for me, I was like using the Decons, like the German stick,
with the combi stick.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still using it for like the IKEA stuff, although it's mostly sensors and small, like the few of those like switches. But I'm trying to look if I have some of them here, but apparently not. So I'm using few of those, whether like where I can have like the Hue So then it's driven through Home Assistant.
Yep.
But like the Hue is like separate unit for us. And also you have like you have the possibility of like the extra features for Hue, like if you have the Philips TV, or if you have like those dynamic scenes, which are not really something you can really do with any like Zigbee to MQTT or the ZHA or something like that. You can't really use those dynamic scenes in any way. So this is something that's driven only by the Hue integration. So I'm basically staying with that. Plus, I'm kind of, my OCD is seeing some available updates and not click on it. So if I would if I would use
Jeez.
Deacons or something like that, I would be I want to update the lights, right? So,
Yeah.
So I want everything to be up to date, and this was driving me crazy because the IKEA, you can, if you have the Foscon application, you can update the IKEA stuff, but you can't do it with the Hue because they are not releasing the firmware like to the third party.
Have you found that IKEA does regular updates? Because I literally I only have 2 Tradfri lights. I put those in when I got them, and I looked, and obviously because they were up to date when I bought them. And I honestly haven't even looked after that. I know IKEA makes them publicly available. I just haven't bothered. Like,
but what do you use as for the controlling Zigbee?
ZHA.
Okay, yeah, I think isn't there available as well that you can update the firmware? I think you can download it. I don't. I know that there are some websites that you can check the firmware at, but I don't know off my head like what is the. But I know that they are doing like at least maybe yearly or something like that, because I know that I used to use them quite a lot because they were way cheaper than the Hue, but it wasn't ideal because especially when you have like multiple lights in array and you want them to turn on at the same time, it's like impossible to do it with ZHA because the way it like needs to ping each light separately. With the Hue, it does it like at the same time, so all the Hue lights are like listening at the same frequency or for the same data stream or whatever. So
can you not put it in a group? Would that not help it, or is it still, because that's what again for my 2 Tradfri bulbs that I have, that's what I have them both in a group, and I find that it does come on at the same time. Maybe it's just accidental because I just have 2. But
you can put them in the group in the Foscon as well, but that occasionally didn't help. Occasionally it still happened that like they turned on at different times.
Right.
Or like wasn't a huge delay, but you could see it. It looked weird.
Yeah. Like where like one comes up and then the other one comes up after.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That is.
So
yeah.
And like with using the Hue, like there is no issue. And maybe I don't know how many lights we have in Hue. I can probably see it in devices, but like quite a lot. 35 Hue devices, but I guess that's controllers as well. So, and it's working like completely smooth. And I don't really have any Zigbee because I saw like many people complaining about Zigbee not being completely reliable. But I think the main reason for that is that the Wi-Fi is running on the same frequency, and in most of the apartment buildings, you have the luxury of seeing everyone else Wi-Fi, and they don't really care that you are running Zigbee as well, right? Like the house we live in is full concrete almost, so I see just my own Wi-Fi, and then I can control like which access point can be on which frequency and just do the Zigbee in the middle. And I have no interference as far as I know, and everything is basically instant, even if it goes through like Home Assistant, and I have like the IKEA Tradfri switch, and I can press it, and the Hue like goes up immediately, and I never had any delay in this case, unless the battery is dead. Then yes,
sure.
How are you driving your smart home? Do you use voice? Have you got tablets around the house, or is it just buttons that you've been using?
Well, like we have we use mostly HomeKit, and I think that was the reason why I got into the your invitation, Phil, because I was mentioning it on the Discord, I believe, and then I was still no one was talking about it, and then Rosemary came and talked about it. So
Yeah.
I want it as well, but no, I think since I was saying we are quite a lot into Apple as well, and HomeKit works like brilliantly, and it's local. Also, if you have like Apple TV or iPad or whatever, you can use it like as a remote control as well.
Yeah.
So I'm at the PC. If I'm at the PC, I use like the Home Assistant, either the app on the Mac or the website. But if I'm on the phone or my wife, we use the Apple HomeKit exclusively, because first of all, you have it like directly integrated in the iPhone or in the watch as well, or on the Apple TV as well. So you can like really quickly pull up the menu to shut down something, or you can like tell the Siri to shut down lights or whatever.
Yeah.
So like voice barely. It's if the like phone is not reachable like within the arm distance, then I would ask Siri to turn on or off some lights. But otherwise, usually like the HomeKit. And we have like old tablet at the entrance. So it has like a modified version of the dashboard for Home Assistant to just be able to quickly see like the temperature outside or the forecast or how much electricity we use, or what's the cost of the electricity right now. Or like you can shut down the lights if you are leaving the house as well. Like there is some automation behind it, but you maybe don't want to wait for that to happen automatically, or
Yeah.
You want like an override to be able to.
Yeah, I would say combination, but mainly the HomeKit, I would say.
And are you using like any like HomeKit bridge from Home Assistant to then expose your devices into HomeKit, like aren't HomeKit certified?
Well,
I guess?
not the bridge. I directly use the HomeKit integration inside the Home Assistant.
Yeah.
So I have six different the HomeKit integrations, because especially if you want like cameras, they supposed to be exposed as a single device.
Yes.
So for that you want to it's done this way. But yes, it's just directly HomeKit communicating, or the Home Assistant directly being called by HomeKit. I know that there are some people already testing the Matter, because Apple released it basically a few months before Home Assistant officially.
Yeah.
And so there are some people testing already, like trying to communicate with the Matter between the Home Assistant and the HomeKit. But then that's just Wi-Fi or Ethernet based. So it's not the Thread/Zigbee. But it's still like they were able to reach, I believe, like turning on lights and everything. But there are still many things that are not part of that protocol, as cameras or vacuum cleaner or whatever. So that's still missing. But I think it's a good thing to watch for the future. So
yeah, I'm really excited to see, because I think Home Assistant just added Matter in 2022.12.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no devices out there that support it. But I think now that it's open out there in the public, it'll be interesting to see what people are going to start doing with it. I think just starting to prepare, right?
I think people can try to maybe check it if they have Apple TV or HomeKit. They can try to maybe start playing if it's available, like to just communicate between the Apple TV and Home Assistant, because I think it should work. But as you say, it's otherwise not much stuff available for it, or maybe nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I wonder because if the Matter integration for Apple TV is better, right, or more local, I guess it's local otherwise too, but it's kind of, the Apple TV, I've always find it a little more clunky than your average kind of integration, right, in Home Assistant. But
yeah, like I think that it is good start for the future to get everyone unified, but it's
totally agree.
it's still like way more beneficial to use some of the integrations you have, because as I think it was Frank who said that it's still way way more advanced. You have way more functions, and
Similar to how you were describing
yeah.
Philips Hue before, right? Like you're not going to get
exactly
game sync or those fancy light dynamic scenes using Matter.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that you can expect that to work really, because I think this is still very much aimed to be something that the Hue bridge does. But I believe what they are planning to do is maybe not even individual bulbs, but with the old bulbs you can still use the Hue bridge as a like Matter speaker.
Right.
So I guess that could, and I believe that most like a lot of the companies would do the same thing, because I think the beauty of the Matter is that it's still, you can still use Wi-Fi. It's just the protocol that they have to implement. So even the devices that you already have may eventually speak Matter one day. Of course,
it's
like
just an upgrade, right? Like a firmware update.
Of course, like the low voltage and long lasting stuff. If it's going to use the thread, then it's that would be like even like step further. But hard to say like how long that will take before that goes in. Also before everyone gets the Sky Connect. So
I was going to say, I think just developing protocols, again, you have to do it slowly, right? And build it one thing at a time. But the difference with building a product like Home Assistant is the Home Assistant team can just whip out updates and start doing whatever. But when it comes to Matter, which is like, you look at who all are involved, it's all large companies. There's smaller companies in there too, but you look at large companies and stuff like that, they can't just pivot their product to do a bunch of things, right? So it ends up being a lot slower, but I guess for the best. But
yeah, and like we already have so much stuff that I don't think that it really matters that you will be waiting. You will be waiting a few more maybe years or so.
Yeah.
Because I think it's still, I believe, still based on Zigbee partially, so it still will be like interfering with whatever you have at home.
Yep.
And well, yeah, I guess it's open standard, so you don't really have much choice on what to use, because if you would go like this Z-Wave road, then you have different frequencies everywhere.
Yeah.
And not much other frequencies are available, like generally. I guess you have just the Wi-Fi frequencies that you could theoretically use, or the RF frequencies, the 433 or around that.
Yeah.
Which like are the really old devices, right? That can run like forever on the battery. But then I think there's something that you can't use encryption or whatever. So I think it's just about those frequencies, like around the Wi-Fi frequencies that you can really use.
Yeah.
So
someone's coming over to your house and they walk in. What would they like? Is there anything special about your house, because it is a smart home powered by Home Assistant, that they wouldn't necessarily see? Like, what's your, I guess the party trick? What would you show off for yours?
No,
for your
I don't.
House?
I don't think that I have really like this kind of things, because it's more like functional stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't really think of it this way. It's really, I'm trying to being practical. So like, I can show that we can do it with the phone, or like in case it would be like standing in front of the house, that I could do it like remotely, etc.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't mean it to really being like, or showing off much. What are the things that like general like my wife's parents are liking is the notifications when like the washing machine or dryer is finished.
Yeah.
So like those kind of things, like the practical stuff, right? It's not like the entertainment much. It's rather the practical stuff that they would guess.
And what would be your most favorite practical item that you've got?
Oh, I did a lot of automations, but it's like tailor made. Plus, I'm more Node-RED guy. Like I can write Python, I can write JavaScript, and I hate YAML. Like I like it for like annotations and for like the
Sure.
like making configuration as well. But like writing automations in it, it's hard. But unfortunately, it's also what like if you run Kubernetes and you have like the Helm charts, they are YAML as well. So it's kind of like something that you eventually have to reach. But I do a lot of stuff in Node-RED, but like really difficult automations. So I combine like the nodes themselves, but also like many times the function node that I write it in JavaScript completely because it would be way too difficult to somehow try to do it in loops, etc. So like I think the first really big automation that I got was like my wife's commuting to Denmark, and she has to take train, etc. And not always the trains are on time, right? So it was like checking in the morning, sending notification whether she goes to work or not. If she would set yes, it would start checking if there is a delay for the train, and it would be checking based on her position. So if she would be at home in the morning, it would be checking the way to the work, if there is like train delays or whatever, or cancellation. And the same thing at work around the time that she would be aiming to go home, which was like guess, of course. It would again start checking whether there are some of the like traffic issues, and again send a notification, and of course all that would be actionable. Like that was one of the big ones because again there was no integration like with the API for that like transport provider. So I had to like check for the APIs and write it completely in Node-RED. So for me, like the Home Assistant itself, it's rather like a middleman, but then most of the automation is in Node-RED, and a lot of the stuff is built around it. As I said, like with the UI, for example, it's more like the HomeKit. So Home Assistant is just, for me at least, it's really making sure that everything speaks the same language, and then just I translate it into the actions I want inside the Node-RED.
Right.
But I have like controlling like lights above the desk, so like I have the application on my work Mac, so it knows which application's on. So for example, in like during the working day, if I turn on Teams or Outlook or VS Code or whatever, it's automatically starting like the bright light. So it's like the work mode, but it wouldn't do that outside of the working time. And it's also like depends whether my like gaming PC is on, so it works on different actions. And so that all is done either like using the Unify integration, because I have like the whole network from Unify, and or the Home Assistant application on the Mac. So yeah, I think there are many automations like for alarm or the presence and everything that's typical. I believe that everyone tries to do, which is funny because I think it's working quite fine, because again we are two of us so far, so it's it's easy to do, because we usually, if we are out, we are with our phones, so it's quite easy to guess if anyone is home. But sometimes it happens that like if someone comes home, like the Wi-Fi doesn't pick it up immediately, and then you get the alarm, like the notification. It's like, someone's in the house. But like it's not happening that much. But like I have like the automation that just checks every sensor that ends with battery. If it's below like 20%, it just gets me notification. As I was mentioning, like the washing machine dryer, like that was like particularly hard, especially for the dryer, because they are not smart. So I have like a plug that can like measure the consumption. And like with washing machine, it's okay because the maximum consumption is within most of the products. But with the dryer, it was usually above that. So I was searching quite a lot, and it's like a local Swedish company that does those like Z-Wave devices that can measure 3 kilowatts, and that was enough to get the dryer in as well. But also it only sends the notification based on who's at home. So if someone's not at home, they don't get a notification. Plus, if neither of us is at home, then I get like the input boolean that just gets on, and if someone gets home, it will again get a notification that something finished. So you get delayed notifications as well, which I find quite cool, because then you don't forget, if you let's say started the dryer before you went for a walk or whatever.
Yeah. I do think like if you do have like a dryer or a machine that is too powerful for those smart modules, another option could be to use a vibration sensor.
Yeah.
And then, as it starts moving, say, okay, someone's activated the dryer.
Yeah.
That's another way around it.
Yeah. I was there was another possibility, but this one has a little bit more functions, because you can also measure the consumption, like overall, like
absolutely. See how much it's costing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was beneficial. Plus, like the logic behind it, it wasn't like if it's over 1 watt, take the input boolean on, and then if it's below 1 watt, take it like off and send a notification. I have like it is actually like checking periodically if it's like over some threshold, and then it's checking if it was within that threshold for past half an hour. So like let's say you have some like cycles that goes off for maybe 15 minutes and just do nothing, and I don't want that to be sending like I finished. So so it was like some logic behind it, to make it a little bit more like realistic. And that's something, for example, I didn't really find that you have like available within the normal automations with the Home Assistant, because like with the Node-RED you can check the past half an hour if it was like above, or you can like randomly check other stuff, and I think that's quite hard to do with the automations normally. So I quite like the Node-RED idea. I would wish that it would be in Python rather than JavaScript, rather than JavaScript. So that would be way better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you've got so you're obviously preparing Node-RED. Have you looked at the new automation builder in the Home Assistant front end? Like, is that a potential option for you, or is it still that you prefer the flows of nodes and can do more complicated stuff in JavaScript?
No, I prefer the flows. Like even if because again, there is some like that you want to make sure that someone else understands if they like eventually look at it, and I feel this like a little bit more clear with the Node-RED. And I had again, when I started with Home Assistant, I tried to use the normal automations or YAML. Yeah. But I had issues when like when you would use the UI and then you would lose the entities, and then you would reload, and then like suddenly the UI version was not editable anymore. So it was like a lot of like things around this that I didn't enjoy much. I believe that right now maybe it's in way better shape. But again, I already built lot of that in Node-RED, and it is making a little bit more sense to me, because it's just nicer. You can quickly see what's not working, etc.
Yeah, I find the debug is really nice in Node-RED too, right? Where you can just flick on and off debugs as you need and stuff like that.
Exactly, which
is nice.
And like what I since I mentioned in the beginning, like I do enjoy the self-hosting part of that as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I hate Raspberry Pi for this, because well, I mean, if you would have it like with SSD or something, it's already like you can tolerate it, I believe. But what I enjoy is like I have like XCPNG virtualization, so I can like do snapshots. I'm not relying on the backup that they may not be. I may not be able to restore them or whatever, or I need to somehow manage them. So I can like quickly do snapshot before the update, and if something does go wrong, I can like really quickly restore it. And plus, I have like daily backups to my NAS as well. So I'm enjoying that part of running my own like home production as well, which like I don't know, it just feels good. So That's the more part I'm enjoying it, and I'm building like a lot of stuff around like Home Assistant as well, because there is a cool project called Monica, which is like a personal CRM where you can like note who has birthday when and what's their relationship with you and when you met them, what are their contacts, kids, etc. And it has quite cool API, so you can query it with the Home Assistant, and then I'm, for example, doing it daily, so it sends notification who has birthday as well. So it can that's, for example, one thing
And that's all self-hosted?
That's self-hosted, yes. It's Monica CRM.
Yep.
And well, they build. It's funny behind the name because I know that they are right now building a new version which is called Chandler. So I guess that's why.
Okay.
So yeah,
nice.
I was also like looking the reason behind this being named Monica before.
Yeah.
But for example, I really like Uptime Kuma, which is like the uptime monitor. I have one at home, one at my father's. I have like small Raspberry Pi there.
Yeah.
And what I actually like quite enjoy, because it's not just that the Uptime Kuma would be monitoring the endpoint. Like, for example, it monitors the Nabukasa endpoint for my instance, but also because I have like the VPN network, so it can like check directly the server if it's working or not. But what I like is that in Uptime Kuma, you can like do this opposite way, that it publishes endpoint on its own, and then I have like an automation in Node-RED that checks all the major integrations in Node-RED and goes like with the hue bridge if it's unavailable. If it's not, it just goes forward, and it checks like the Unify network, it checks like the Zigbee, etc. And if it passes all those checks, it will just query this Uptime Kuma website, and Uptime Kuma marks it as okay, everything's working. If it wouldn't check it within a minute, then Uptime Kuma fires the notification. So I get, okay, there is maybe like Zigbee doesn't work or something like that.
It's interesting. I'm doing something similar but actually instead of doing like something like Uptime Kuma, I'm using Home Assistant itself. So I use a whole bunch of template entities and binary sensors using the curl command in Home Assistant. So I'll go out, I think it's every 5 minutes, they will do a ping to the local server in my network and say, okay, is this port open? Is it reachable? If it's not, then it just flicks that binary sensor as a problem on. And then I can get a notification in my Home Assistant dashboard to say, hey, this service on that server isn't responding. And I'm going to a level now where Home Assistant can go, okay, it will go in and attempt to restart that Docker container. And for things like a Raspberry Pi that's hosting my Z-Wave.js, I'm actually going to put a Zigbee smart switch behind it and just kill it remotely and then turn it back on.
Yeah. I think the only thing there though, Phil, is if Home Assistant itself is down or has like an API error or something like that, it won't fire.
Yeah, in my case it will. Yeah.
Whereas Jan's will. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I looked at Uptime Kuma for actually exactly that, but I wasn't able to get that detailed into it. I basically stopped at up down. But I'd love to see. Do you have that documented somewhere, Jan? I'd love to see.
I can. Can I share a screen or not?
Yeah. The audio listeners won't be able to see it, obviously, but that's okay.
But I can eventually post the links, or people can
we'll
on the Discord.
See that. Yeah.
So this is basically how it works. It's basically fire every, I don't know how much is it, every 45 seconds. It just checks the Z-Wave gateway. Oh no, this is not checking the gateway. Just one node of the Z-Wave, Decons, Unify, View, UDM, and then it sends the HTTP request to the Uptime Kuma, which then I have this Node-RED passive, and how this configured is that I have this random URL of the Uptime Kuma that if that's not being reached in every 60 seconds or whatever, it just fires Discord notification. So
cool. Okay.
I get, and I mean, this is something that I'm trying to, like, again, I was talking, this is already production, right? For me, at least. So it is quite, this is what I do for work, really, just to make sure that everything, that uptime is 100%. although that's not possible ever, I believe. But just that's my like work, and trying to translate that mindset into what I have at home as well is like at least what I see it behind it. And I know that this like taking the latest updates all the time is getting a little bit against it, but again, I have the snapshot, so I can revert it quickly, and it's usually like, even with the breaking changes that comes with the Home Assistant, and I understand why there are so many breaking changes compared to other projects, because just Home Assistant is huge, and what other projects can say that they are in the top 10 of the GitHub stuff. It will be always there. I don't think that you can like completely get around it, especially with like all the providers that you are querying inside the Home Assistant are getting like they are changing their minds, right? And they are disabling their services. So it's never really easy to do it without the breaking changes. And I know that people are like fighting against it, but I don't think that it's really possible to do. So it's unfortunate, but I think that you can. Everyone has to just get used to it. On the other hand, I don't see the reason why you couldn't just do backup before it and see if that somehow affects you. But yeah, again, not maybe everyone has like this setup, so it's a little bit hard to, let's say, especially when you're starting, to somehow get, let's say, the config out of the instance before you do the update. And then, so yeah, I guess it depends. But yeah, I think taking it like this mindset that you want that to be uptime as much as possible, and that's for example why I said that I went with the Hue integration and taking the Hue bridge on its own, because again, not just the features, but also it works, and I am quite confident with them. Like with the, I think they are from Netherlands as well, like the Signify company that basically does all the electronics. They just use the Philips to brand it, right? And I'm fairly confident they are all for like open sourcing the access to their APIs. Although there are some limits with how many times they have some throttling on the API, which I believe the Hue bridge is way too old, I believe, to be able to handle anything else. So I think that's just like safeguards, so no one can abuse the system itself. But yeah. So I think at least this is my mindset behind it, to try to do try to do backups, to try to make sure that it's uptime, and if it's not, then just to get a notification.
Yeah.
Of course, like I'm not monitoring every single device. Like if like that, like temperature sensor somewhere goes like without battery, and not all of the like sensors are like sending that they have like low battery. They are 100% and suddenly 0. So in that case, I will not get notification, or it's unavailable, and in that case, I will not get notification. And I don't mind, like occasionally this can happen, and I'll notice eventually, but I don't. Yeah, and this is, for example, what like the IKEA stuff it's great for, because the temperature and humidity sensors, or not, I think humidity, temperature, and pressure. They cost so small. They cost nothing. Yeah. So and they are like, but they are not waterproof. But I still stick them outside. Let's like if it breaks,
it's a couple of bucks. Like
exactly. Yeah. It's super cheap, and you can just use it, and you can just get a new one. Same with the switches with the IKEA. Plus they are magnetic, so you can like stick it on the fridge if you want, like shortcut to something. So yeah.
Have you got it shortcutted to anything? Have you thought about any shortcuts that you would use it for?
Well, for lights usually, like some scenes. That's most of the. But we have like vacuum, the robotic vacuum, and I specifically, I think it was like a year ago, and we were like, oh, we need one, right? Because you have like this dust bunnies everywhere, right? So it's like, oh, like you want that, so you don't have to care about it, and it really helped. The only disadvantage is that, of course, when with something that's like somehow available in Home Assistant, and there are many of them that are like partially, but there was like this company, oh damn it, I completely forgot what's the name, and it's Ecolux, and they have quite cool vacuum cleaners, but there is like only unofficial, integration.
That's the debugs, right?
I think.
Yeah.
But it's exactly, the debug, exactly. And the integration is working fine, but the problem is that all of the advanced features, they are somehow, it's hard to translate them, because what I did is I built quite, can show it, I believe. So I have like huge automation for that. Then I have like input boolean for each room, and it's just checking which I turned on, and if I turn it on, it sends it to that room, and if I turn it off, it stops vacuuming. And if it's on one switch, the other one will not get on; it will just automatically turn off as well.
Oh wow!
So, and it will just tell me like, oh, you already vacuuming, so don't turn on other. I could of course like query or like put it inside a like queue or something or whatever. But this is like, I wanted something so I can translate it into the HomeKit, and it wasn't easy because I think you couldn't like publish vacuum cleaner directly to HomeKit. So the input boolean was basically the way to go, and I use it a lot, quite a lot. But like some logic behind it, and so to prevent like some edge cases, etc. So it's always like was quite hard to get around it. But it was always challenging. But I guess that's the things that eventually come. I also have to like sometime enable maintenance because it was broken once, so we have to service it or send it to service. And so then I wanted to just turn on the maintenance, like if someone accidentally like switch it on, just not to do anything. And because I think there are many use cases, but like again, I don't have anything that I would be extra showing off. I think there are many people, and there are many other countries where like lights and like those lights, like light fixtures and all of the Christmas lights around the house, where it's like very popular. And no, that's not really in Sweden. And like you can have it, but it's not like that will be blinking, so it's like on off, right? So it's not it's not that popular. But I think there are many other that I'm quite happy about. This is for the Monica and Chandler, and or maybe doing some like that was like you can brew your own like something. I can use it for beer. This time is Woogie, which is I don't know if I can explain it, or my wife could probably, but like doing instead of like making somehow timing inside the Node-RED, I think that's something that I got burned quite early, because like if you start timer at Node-RED and you restart the whole Home Assistant, the timer is gone. So there are few things that like okay, I need to set it as a timestamp, and then retrieve the timestamp later, or periodically retrieve the timestamp if it's maybe already the time. So there are a few like edge cases, but
can you dump the timestamp into like MQTT and then read it back in from there in case it resets?
No, what I do is that I just have it as input date time. So it's an entity inside the Home Assistant.
Yeah.
So I do well. I not much use MQTT. It's more for me. It's more like playing. I don't want that extra layer between stuff. Eventually, I believe it has to come, but it's right now I don't have to. The only thing that I use the MQTT for is that I'm playing with like this LoRa, like this ultra distance, low bandwidth communication.
The LoRaWAN?
And exactly. Well, the LoRaWAN is I think one implementation. But the LoRa itself, the technology, and I just like antenna on the balcony and trying to reach as far as possible. I'm fairly sure that my 7 kilometers that I reached I'm probably not using the load power, and I'm probably above it. But so right now it's off. But that's the only thing that I use the MQTT for, because it can like push inside. One thing that I enjoy also on the hardware side is I have like both the Decons and and Z-Wave JS. I have that actually on Raspberry Pi because I want to in my home server because I actually have like 2 servers, so I can like migrate between those servers if I want to do hardware maintenance or like upgrades or whatever on one. I can like switch it to the other one without downtime. But I want to be sure that the USB is not a limitation, so the USB sticks are not. So
Right.
I'm having like separate Raspberry Pi that has like just those two sticks, like one for Z-Wave, one for Zigbee, and they are like through the network protocol. So the cons, they have API, and the Z-Wave JS, that's some like, I don't know what protocol is that. So I don't need the downtime in case that I want to upgrade like one server. Like the
How do you
physical server.
find running Z-Wave.js on a Raspberry Pi? Like, what version of the Pi are you using to run it on?
Pi 4, and I just ran it inside the Docker, and it's working completely fine. I don't have really any issues.
Nice.
The only thing that sometimes like the timing for the upgrades are not available. Said it wrong. But sometimes the timing when I do like the Home Assistant update and I forgot to do the update for the JS, I get like notification
so it's
inside
in
Home Assistant.
different places and it's not matching. Yeah.
So sometimes that happens, but it's not a huge deal. Like I can just quickly upgrade Z-Wave JS as well.
Sure.
And it's working fine.
I use a Pi 3. I think it's just maybe a 3B. And I'm using a pretty old Z-Wave stick. I found that for whatever reason, my Z-Wave network will just stop responding and memory gets overloaded. And I'm unsure if it's the radio USB that's getting overloaded or if it's just the Pi running out of memory or something. So I might have to experiment running it.
I don't think that the stick itself has like much information inside. So I
don't think so. Yeah.
Blame the.
It's probably the Pi. If you're on CLI, Phil, you can use something like HTOP to get like prettier graphs and stuff like that, and and see what's happening there.
But I think that this I would more blame the Pi rather than because I believe that the Raspberry Pi 3, I think that was like a really border case of the memory, especially if you like running Docker and maybe some newer version of the OS or whatever. I think you can reach it quite quickly, and as we know, like everything grows on memory. So or they can have some like really weird memory leak on the version of the hardware that could, or some combination that could cause this. So I would rather say the Raspberry Pi than the USB itself. I don't really see that would go anywhere. I think it's a really dumb device. For
whatever reason, like Z-Wave JS, like in the console is just like USB hardware or something like that, memory failure or something like that, network unreachable or whatever. I think I'll just have to experiment, move it around from a Raspberry Pi to something else and see if I still see it.
Well, I guess you can just back up the JS and just try to put it for a few minutes on the Home Assistant itself.
Exactly.
Just install it there as add-on and see if it does the same thing. If it does, then you are clear on what's causing it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It may hard to say. Like, I guess that's what the logs are for.
Yeah, that's it.
And Google.
And Google. And Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
That's right.
I have a question for you actually. Like, what's your like your ideal setup? Like, what would you like to have in the future, and how do you imagine like your future home, your future smart home will look like?
Ooh, Phil, why don't you kick that one off? I need to think about my answer for that one.
I was hoping you would go first for the same reason. What my future home look? I think I'm pretty close to where I want it to be. I don't want it to be too futuristic. Like, I think Right now, my home, like the blinds are automated, which have just got hidden motors in them, right? They still look like blinds. Like if you were just looking at my house, it would just be a normal blind, right? But they're voice controlled switches. I have pretty fancy switches now, which have Fibaro Z-Wave dimmers behind them. So you can walk up to them, hit them. I wouldn't mind motion sensors that can be discreetly hidden in the wall. Right now I have the Aquara FP1s stuck up in corners of the rooms. I have a couple of old Z-Wave 4M1 AOTech sensors that stick out like anything, like just up in the wall. They look horrendous. I wouldn't mind something that's just discreet but very high precision, right? Using these Xiaomi FP1s, like walking into a room within 30 seconds, the lights turn off. They just that level of smart home is pretty good. I wouldn't mind.
But what if about the FP1? If you like sit down for a while, does it still recognize that you are there?
Yeah, it can detect your breathing. It's that pretty good, right?
Assuming it's positioned correctly, right? Like, I mean,
yes,
Phil, when we did that episode of All Things Smart Home, that's one of the things that we were chatting about is the positioning of the FP1.
It has to be pointed, the right way.
Yeah.
I have also noticed, for whatever reason, with that sensor, sometimes it is hard to detect me leaving a room. So I'll enter the room, it will go, motion is, or this room is occupied, but then it won't mark the room as unoccupied. And there is a button a soft button that you can press to say reset the sensor. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I would like something more reliable, but I just like everything to be, and I guess this is what Matter is supposed to solve. I just want everything that is smart to be able to communicate better with each other, so that I don't have to have, a Raspberry Pi with 2 different radios and, things from Wi-Fi getting hacked, or Wi-Fi devices that only support 2.4G networks.
That one is a personal, drives me up the wall.
And if you have the really like budget ones that if your 5G and 2G Wi-Fi networks are named the same, it won't work. Like it just craps out.
I don't. Well, what I do is that I have 2 SSIDs. The personal devices, like the one that you expect to have the 5G available, those are both. They are on the same like name. They are both.
Yep.
But then the IoT is only 2.4.
Right.
Specifically for that reason. Although some of the devices can do 5 gigahertz as well, it's from that reason. I don't do that. I don't want to be fighting with it being connected to the wrong one or whatever.
Yeah.
But in general, I have like 0 issues with Wi-Fi, but it's also because it's, again, we were talking about the Wi-Fi itself, or about the network, and about the fact that like me and my wife, we work from home. Although she not that often, but me basically even before coronavirus, and it was just like one must-have was like proper network, so it's basically full Unify and everything. But the thing is that I think that with a proper presence sensor and somehow making invisible, I think the best way is actually camera. If you have like person detection inside the camera, and most of the new ones can do that, you can. I think that's the most reliable that I would like to try, because you can. Like either the camera has some recognition on its own, or you can definitely run it through some software, and not necessarily cloud, but some software. And like I know that this is a little bit maybe too expensive, but the Unified, they does this.
Yeah.
They have like new camera that's that you supposed to have all the electronics like somewhere behind the wall, and then you have like the really small camera that you can like have inside the wall.
Yeah,
and,
like hidden.
Yeah, like it's that they aim for like the luxury shop or whatever, but you don't want to have like the nice, like the ugly cameras everywhere. So
but then you've got to have cameras around the house doing like watching you to see if there's a human in the room.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
I have, so we do like at the entrance.
Yep.
And that's very much it. Oh, yeah, I have one on balcony, but it's like bad resolution, and I'm doing time lapse, and that's what I'm doing. So it doesn't like it. You can't really recognize even in the person, like whoever's walking there. Like a car, yes, but person no. But it's so it's doing time lapse because we see like the Øresund bridge directly from the bridge between Denmark and Sweden directly from the window, and like if you have like sunset or sunrise. So I'm actually using Home Assistant to know the timing and to do the time lapse. So it's saving like the JPEG every half an hour.
That's neat.
Or something like that. And then I'm just building trying to script the proper timing out of the time lapse. I think right now I have like 2 years worth of time lapse.
Wow.
So I didn't put it like done yet, but I wanna try it. But I think maybe it's time because I forgot until I was talking about it right now. So
that's cool.
Thanks for reminding.
There you go.
Rohan, what do you think your future smart home needs to look like?
I think I kind of share the answer with you in the sense that most of it I think is there for me already. A couple of things I do want to focus on. Again, smart blinds because all of mine are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's actually an interesting article a friend of mine, Alex, wrote that around smart blinds and stuff like that, or how he made his smart. And I actually like the approach. Maybe I'll send a link in the show note, Phil.
Yeah, definitely.
And then even a lot of that's a big focus of mine. I want to do more around I'd love to get solar in
same.
That is assuming if I move out and I have the ability to do so. That would be pretty cool, I think. So other than that,
we have the same condition if I move on.
yeah, right. Like it's hard. It's very costly to retrofit too. But I mean, even otherwise, even if I do move out, it's still going to be a retrofit. It's just little less disruption, I think. And then this one's actually one I've been thinking about lately, which is like in closets and stuff like that, within the cabinets and stuff, doing way more lighting, way more that kind of stuff. Some of the stuff I can't because it's already built in. So I can't do a ton with that kind of lighting. But
AliExpress, man. Like
totally.
AliExpress, you can buy it in IKEA actually. You have like those lights that you just stick at the top of before the doors. So if you open the doors, it just lights.
Exactly.
But then it's not Home Assistant really.
which I don't mind that it's not Home Assistant. I'd prefer if it was, but that's not a make or break. I think, right? Like. But it would be cool. Like even in like eventually we're saving up right now, but eventually we want to redo our kitchen, right? So when I do that, I'm gonna make sure there's gonna be like lights in the drawers, stuff like that. Things that are just little functional thing, aesthetic as well. Yeah. And then just basically standardizing on bulbs and stuff like that, which is easy enough to do. I mean, right now, most of my bulbs, they're not smart bulbs, so it's a lot less costly. It's just, I don't know, I think it's also kind of wasteful if I'm just taking bulbs, chucking them, and then putting in other bulbs, right? So unless there's a specific need for it. Other than that, I think for the most part, I'd love to monitor. Like right now I have Nest Protects as well, so like for smart fire alarm and smoke detector and carbon monoxide. I'd love to throw in natural gas in there as well. It's just having just come back from a trip, one of the things that I did do is like turn off all of my things that were natural gas driven, stuff like that. Not everything though, right? Like there's certain things that did remain. And like, again, my heater for the house is natural gas driven, right? But, and at the same, and I can't just turn it off because it's getting colder now and like all of my plants will die and so on. So I'd love to see any of those. If there's any good recommendations for folks that have like, preferably Zigbee based, or even Z-Wave based or Z-Wave.
Yes, I saw there was quite few.
Yeah.
That you could use not just the sensor but also like a valve. Like you can like turn off the gas and anything, and I think that's quite cool. Like my plan eventually would be not having to switch batteries.
Yeah,
like that would be really cool. Like
amazing.
Yeah, like eventually if we move to house or something, then of course solar as well, and being like partially off grid at least. But right now, like only the batteries are eventually like it's not even like monthly. I would have to change them.
No.
So it's yeah, I don't know. Like it's not that often. Like,
no, I think I'm like at a 6-month cycle or maybe even a year, depending on what devices, right? So
the one that like switches, it's fine because again, most of the stuff you can turn on in the phone or whatever.
Yeah.
But so you can like switch it, and I have like extra batteries all the time available. What bothers me is then, like, for example, like we have magnetic sensors on the fridge and freezer. So in case it's like longer on, it like repeats the notification to Home Assistant again to the person that's home to close it, right? But then if that's somehow not working, then it's not ideal. Although like the fridge and freezer, they both like do like high pitch noise in case that it's too long open. So like you would know, but still.
What if you've left the house before?
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't hear that beep, right?
So there are some things that I would maybe like improve, and one of those would be definitely not to use batteries. Like you could use like ESP32 or something with ESP home, and then just have like wired detectors or something that if it's open or not, and then the ESP most likely will be like
USB
plugged into power. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's also a solution. And
Jan, thank you so much. I'm probably going to leave it there. Thank you for coming on today, sharing. We will have a link to the video that you've shared today of your setup for people that aren't watching on YouTube.
Sure.
And we'll leave other links in the show notes as well, as usual. Otherwise, Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, again, it was really cool to meet you.
Of course.
Likewise. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@hasspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io.
The Home Assistant Podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics we discussed today, check out our show notes on hasspodcast.io.